Hello there, product people. Welcome to the show that supercharges your abilities to become better thinkers, makers, and leaders. I'm your host, Alsawi, and I'm thrilled to have you join me for this exciting episode of Product People. As product people, we love discovering and solving the right problems. However, we sometimes struggle to bring our ideas to life. So, what gets in the way? The challenges that we face vary from internal bureaucracy, expertise dependency, subjective opinions, and self-limiting beliefs. In this episode, we'll discuss how product people can learn, build, and scale their abilities to bring their ideas to life through no-code tools. So if you're a designer, product manager, software engineer, entrepreneur, or simply someone looking to bring their idea to market with speed, you're in the right place. Expect a genuine conversation, intriguing stories, and valuable advice that can fuel your own journey with product, design, and leadership. Let's dive right in. Today, I'm joined by a seasoned design leader and practitioner, a no-code expert, a mentor, and a world traveler and entrepreneur. Hailing from Brazil and now based in Switzerland, she has over 25 years of product building experience, working with more than 150 companies, including well-known tech startups, education organizations, and service-based businesses. She speaks 4 languages, lived in 11 countries, and launched more than a dozen apps. Fun fact, at the age of 6, this entrepreneur started her journey by selling doll clothes to the children she played with. She also sold world maps at a barbershop and even asked a priest for money to buy a Mother's Day gift. Without further ado, let's welcome Karla Fernandes to the Product People podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here, Savi. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I'd love to start from the beginning. So take us back to your story with design, and how did you get into design and what led you to no code?
Okay. So, Elsavi, I am a designer since I am 15 years old. I really started my career as a graphic designer. I really had the feeling that design was a thing for me when I first touched a computer. I was very young still, and some publisher just gave me the opportunity to work for them. So I started building, creating magazines, newspapers, and short after that, web was the boom. So this is about the 2000s already. And when web was just starting, I realized that what I was doing, that it was graphic design, could be applied to web too, which I called design for web at the time. The web design term was not really popular in Brazil. So I started to build those graphic design for web. And with that, I realized that customers actually didn't want to hire a designer and a developer. And with that in mind, and wishing to have some more on the side, like you said, I am already entrepreneur since very young age. So I was working full time, but I really wanted to do something else on the side too. I realized that the opportunity was for me to learn how to code. So I did learn how to code HTML, CSS. Like, of course, this evolved with the time. In the 2000s, this was not there. For this need that my customers, on-site customers, wanted a website or a web store. They didn't really want to hire 2 people. And it was great for them because they could hire just one. And it was great for me because I could also dominate the whole experience. So straightforward from this web design, I became a front end developer, then a full stack designer. And when Angular was just launched, I was very interested in it. I even created my portfolio using the tool. But then I realized short after it was React. And then I was like, okay, this is getting crazy. Now I need to learn React too. And then after a month, Vue. And then I was like, what? No, this is really crazy. Like, I cannot keep it up. I cannot learn all these frameworks so fast as they wish. So what I realized was like, okay, now either I go full stack designer or I stay in development and really become a very good developer, which I have never been a so great developer, right? Like, I'm able to read code, to write snippets, to edit things, but I was never that so great of developer.
Hmm.
And with that, I just focused on UX UI and digital product design. I did a specialization. I started to focus on mentoring the new design generation. And I really loved it. Like education for me has been a blast. I really love mentoring people. But in 2020, by December, I learned that I could actually start building apps using no code. And that was not a new term for me. I used WordPress for a long time before, but I could never build an app and publish to the App Store or Google Play Store. So
Hmm.
when I learned about that, I was really interested. I spent a month learning it. And in a month, I launched my first product. So for me, this was astonishing. And this leads, yes, now 4 years to now, it's what I have been doing, creating no code products or creating products, but using no code tools without the need to code.
Okay. For our listeners that are perhaps unfamiliar with the concept of no code, think about a 10-year-old maybe asking you, what's no code? How would you go about explaining it in simple terms?
So, no code, it's like the term says, is the ability you have to build something without having to know how to write code for it. So, most of the time, of course, like if you want a website, you need to know HTML, CSS. I know that maybe a 10-year-old, you not really understand those terms too, but it's like you need to know the terms to write on a page so that is interpreted by your browser and displayed as a website. And no code brings you, depending on the tool, some customizing pre-built blocks that with a little bit of code you can do things. So that's low code. Or you can do, for example, WordPress, that is a no code and low code tool. WordPress, you can be a customer facing interface, and in there, you are not really coding, you are adding content, you are changing maybe the way it looks. Or it can be also low code. Sometimes you want things to look a little bit different, and then you have to write some code to change that. Maybe some HTML, maybe some PHP script for you to make what you want to work. So this is the way I would
Hmm.
explain.
Hmm. Okay. What I also find that, especially with no code, is that some developers, I'd say, don't really like it when they first start. I've experienced this firsthand, working on a number of projects when I'm working with developers, and I introduce to them the idea of no code. There's that sense of no, I just want to do it. Why would I use a no code tool? So I don't know how broad this phenomena is, but I wanted to ask you more around who particularly benefits from using no code tools and how do they benefit?
Sure, like any non technical individual that wants to create apps, websites, and this also includes, of course, designers, creatives, like from entrepreneurs to startups, from freelancers to agencies, small business to large organizations, and even IT departments, I would say, they can all benefit. For me, the three main benefits are like you can do things much faster, so they can go really fast to the market. You can really reduce costs because you are spending less time doing it. You are also not spending a lot of money with licenses,
Hmm.
and you can iterate in high speed, which for us designers I think is the main thing, that we can gather feedback, improve, and be quick with this, and also check the product market fit in the process.
Okay. Okay. So cost, rapid iteration, speed to market, to name a few of the benefits you mentioned. You said you spent around a month learning some of the basics of no code platforms at the time. What's your best recommendation for someone that's getting started on this? How do they get started? Where do they go? What do they do?
I think the best way for you to start is for you to define a goal. Define if you want to create a website, if it's a web app, if it's a native app, yes, you can also do those. Research the tools that are available in the market for each of them. Decide which tool you think fits best your project and learn the basics. Start with tutorials, learn maybe by the documentation, or even go to the community of the tool. A lot of these tools today have communities on Discord or somewhere else. You can really start small. A lot of people think that for them to build a product, they need to start with the whole concept of the product or how it will be in the end. But this is a myth. You really should start small. Like maybe you want to do an app for events. So start just with the listing for the events and the input from the user. So think really here about the concept of a minimal viable product or a minimal lovable product. Because if you think about it, Facebook wasn't this size from day one, Instagram neither, and none of the products we use today every single day and many times a day didn't start the size they are. They kept iterating, they kept building on top of they had before.
Something that you mentioned in particular that I want to kind of probe in on a little bit more. You said define a goal, which I think is so important because if you start playing with tutorials right away and trying to learn the tool without having a goal, it's easy to get lost. So I really like that you start with a goal in mind. You said research the tools next, but the third step I find also very interesting, and that's the one that I want to dive in a little bit more. You said pick the tool based on your needs. So I want to ask you about your process. When you get a new project, how would you go about choosing the right tool? What is your thought process? What's your criteria to kind of find the right tool for the job?
Today, people, like when you decide which project you want to do, you really need to see if that tool is flexible to do what you want, if it can scale, if you need that. A lot of people believe that today that no code exists actually to replace traditional coding, and that's not the truth. So what is going on here? It is that this is to complement right coding skills where if you are a coder, and this is really to help you to bring your ideas to life more efficiently. The biggest misconception I would say is that people think that no code tools are limited and in scope and capability, but I can tell you like today you could build an Instagram using no code. So it really depends if you want to build an Instagram for web or if it is a native app, and how you really make this a small product for you to start. What is the minimal viable product? What is the most important feature in your app that makes it more interesting for you or for the user, right? Like we should have always the end user in mind. What is that your app you make different that you make it the best product for the end user? And there are many powerful solutions, a wide range of tools here. So for websites today, I really love Webflow, Framer. If you want to build a web app, there are several in the market. I really recommend Todo. It's the one tool I am learning a lot about, but you can see others like Bubble, for example. If you want to have a tool, a no-code tool, which you can build a native app for iOS, for Android, and also a web app in one single time. You can use Good Barber, for example. But the tool I most use all the time, it's Bravo Studio. I use it to create native apps, and I use it because I am a designer. And the huge advantage to using Bravo Studio for a designer, it is that this tool runs on top of your Figma file. So if you create the whole process to create your app in a Figma file, you're already 60% there. And afterwards, you just need to rearrange your file, give you different names to your layers, and give it instructions so that the tool can understand what you want or what kind of a native behave you want for each of those pieces. And to
Go
not
ahead.
talk just about those, like of course, like there are a bunch for database, like Airtable, for forms like Tally, and also for logic, like Communico. So the no-code tools are not limited only to web apps, and websites. There are also a lot of them for automation, database, project management.
All right. I was writing also down a bit on the criteria. So you said look at what you need. Things like flexibility, scalability, your unique value prop, the key features, customization support. And so I was taking notes. So you said the particular tool that you mentioned that runs on top of Figma, which is something unique, is Bravo Studio. Okay,
Exactly.
is that a plugin in Figma?
So it is not really a plugin. They have a plugin which teaches you to see if your layers are named in the right way or with the right instructions. That is called like a Bravo tag. But the plugin is just there to oscillate you. You don't need it. If you read the documentation, if you go around the files that are there, for example, you test them on your browser, you can already see them on your phone and test it very easily. So you don't really need the plugin to make it work. It is like a total complete platform separated. It's a website. Then you import your Figma file there. And after this, you start binding the static components from Figma with data that can come from any
Mm,
API, Airtable, Sun, or any other.
thank you for clarifying. We're going to take a short break. And when we're back, I'll be asking you about the biggest misconceptions people might have about no code tools. So stay tuned. Hey there, my amazing product people. If you're trying to find your own story with product, design, and leadership, gain a new perspective on being human in a soulless corporate world, and possibly have a good laugh in the process, you can grab your very own copy of my latest book, Product People, A Journal of Laughter and Tears. It's available on Amazon in all formats right now. Happy reading. All right, let's continue where we left off. I wanted to ask you about the biggest misconceptions that people have about no code tools.
So, yeah, a lot of people really think that no code is for simple project. It is for you to do a prototype. It is for you to have three users trying it. It is for you to show your development team. It can scale. But no code tools today can really do a lot already. I have an app that started with one user, of course, right? And
Mhm.
once it arrived to 1,000 users, the first version, I realized, oh, you know what? I will invest more time on it. And then it grew to 1,500 very quickly. I also have customers that started thinking that they would have maybe 50 users or so that have more than 6,000. So a lot of business today won't need that power at all. Like depending on what you are building, it's really for a niche and you don't even have that many people or you cannot handle that many people in whatever you are building. So this is for me one of the biggest misconception is that you have to have a very simple project, that it should not scale. What scale for you, right? And the second is that a lot of people think that no code you replace developers. And this is really not about replacing developers. It is about helping them to do things faster too, right? Because they may have other technical debt to clear up. And we can help with automations. We can help streamline our tasks, even if we are non-technical. And a lot of people can do that. I actually have a friend that is so good at it that sad to say that his boss actually, after seeing that he cut 40% of the time he needed with the work, that he was not really essential anymore and he cut him off. So he
Oh,
was able to automate so much and that his boss actually thought, okay, so now I can do it myself, which is maybe not a good example to give here.
it's I guess it's the unintended consequences. This is one of the ethical dilemmas around efficiency and automation, and how while we want it, they also might have some unintended negative consequences for people's livelihood. So it's an interesting paradox or dilemma to think about. You spoke about the definition of scalability and how people might overestimate what they need when it comes to scalability. Simplicity of projects, you said, in fact, no code can handle more complex projects. And of course, that misconception around some people might think that how no code would replace developers. There's one that I want to ask you about. I was speaking to a developer and I was introducing a no code tool. And as they kind of learned it, because it was new to them, one of the things this developer said was, "Where's the code?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" Like asking, like, where is the actual code? And I said, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where it is. It's probably running somewhere on a server with this platform. But his concern was dependency. He said, if they go down
Mhm.
tomorrow or if something happens, we can't copy our code and use another platform to host it. So that was an interesting way to think about it. My counter argument in that conversation was, well, that could be applicable for anything. Anything really where you host something, you can make the argument to say, well, if it goes down tomorrow, what am I going to do, right? Have you heard something like that before? Did you hear this kind of concern about dependency before?
Oh, definitely. But like it, well, sure, I totally agree with you. And there is this possibility, right? But we use tools every day that we don't know if they will be here tomorrow. Like I don't know, maybe you had also an account on Clubhouse. I don't know if it vanished or if people just stop using it. Twitter is now X, and things change, and data comes and goes, right? And but coming back to the example you gave me, I see a lot of companies also really worried about compliance and governance, where the data is, and if this will affect their company or not, depending on the country that is in there. There are no code tools that actually offer this, that you can choose where your data goes, but we are in the end. Every tool we use, we cannot really defend ourselves. Like our Figma files can vanish tomorrow. Imagine that.
Mm,
Like I have no Figma file saved on my company, on my computer, and if I would have, I would not have where to open them anyways.
mhm,
So what would you do, right? But we have been also like this with Adobe for so many years. We use Photoshop and Illustrator for so many years, and this is not just in the development world, right? It's also in the design world. And in development world, they have several programming languages, and they change so fast. One You don't migrate from one to another, and this is also a problem even with no code. Maybe you have a structure that works very well in the start, and then afterwards you want to migrate it. It might be impossible. Then you have to redo it from sketch. So in thinking about this, I want to add one more point, that
mhm.
is, I am again not advocating about forget about developers. What I want people to think and to imagine is that we can build products faster, we can put them up to proof, we can receive feedback from our users, see if there is a market fit, and as soon as we have a product that we see it's profitable, we see you have several users, we see there is a future, put a development team behind you to create the same app, like a mirror app with code. Because if this is the core thing from your company, of course, you should have a way to protect yourself.
So, from a product lifecycle perspective, I think as I kind of point down the different cases, there is that element of, yes, experimentation, and I want to launch something and maybe expand via a functional prototype. But you also said it could be your MVP. It's your first idea, you're taking it to market, and perhaps even the introduction of a fully functional product where you're raising awareness about it, you're trying to test your product market fit. What you're saying is that once you tested all of that and you're trying to bring it to a mature product, then perhaps you can consider going with code or going the traditional route. Am I getting that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And given that you've been in this space for a while now, I want to know from your perspective, how have you seen this space change in the recent years?
So what is increasing and growing really fast is the presence of communities, a lot of educational resources. People are really getting to know more no code. They are really starting to adopt it. I see people interested in it now, like talking a little bit more with me. I have been practically speaking alone for the last 2 years, and then 2 years ago people start to say like, oh, this is so cool. And I was glad that I didn't give up before, but it took a little while, right? Then you also have more possibilities to integrate other tools with each other. So these things are growing. There is a diversification of platforms. You can build almost everything, like I would say almost everything, in the sense of you can build a small version of almost everything that exists already using no code. And we are starting to see advanced capabilities. Like when I started, I could not send pushing notifications into the app. I could not have a swipe left, swipe right.
Mm.
So there were these gestures and things that didn't exist before that now are also available. So of course, every day there is something new going on. Like you can record audio, you can display video, you can do so many things that you were not able 3 years ago.
All right. Throughout your years of experience, you're probably seeing different kinds of clients. Some may be easier to work with than others. So I wanted to see if you can share with us a story. Maybe it relates to no code, and maybe one that you kind of enjoyed and it worked well, and maybe one that was quite challenging, and maybe what can we learn from it?
So I always start with the quite challenging. I think it's quite challenging to, like, there are a lot of customers that when you start to work with no code and create products, that you come to you with the idea that they can build everything. And this is still the quite challenge thing, right? So I had a customer coming to me with a really great idea, but even when you are a long time using the tools, there are things that you may not have tried in other opportunities that are unknown to you and that you don't know where you can stretch that to. So one of my challenges was really this, to discover if the tool would make it possible for me to stretch onto what the customer actually intended to have. And after weeks, I would say, of negotiation,
Mhm.
the customer just decided to leave the project. So it was a lot of effort in doing calls and having proposals written and everything for it to just should be left behind. But yes, I think there is always this always happens, right, in every industry too. Like when you are a designer, this you may happen the same with you, that you be really looking forward to build a project and not be able in the end. But the good,
Mm.
I would even say, about the same project is that left me with several ideas which I could not implement for the customer himself, but I could explore on my own. And out of that idea, I did create other two projects. So in the end, it's like that kind of project that you think, oh, I just spent so much time researching this and learning how I would use, and now I'm using for a project that is mine. Like I also want to add the other thing here that people may not have realized so far. I am a designer, right? I know code, and I became a no coder, or I'm building products using no code tools for a little bit more than 3 years. And I am building all of it as a team of one. I am doing the branding, I'm deciding the colors, I am creating how it will look, I'm also creating the flows, doing the user interviews, doing the testing. I am testing it myself with me, with my stepkids, with my husband, with my friends, like every
Mhm.
designer does. So I want you to think in whatever role you are that you don't need to be technical. It is not really about the background you had before. It is about if you have the wish to build something, you can really do that as a single or a solopreneur today.
Mm.
You don't
Mm.
need to be building for a company, like, even though I think that is a huge advantage, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think the mindset is very important. I like how that story that you shared, while it started with a mismatch on expectations, perhaps, it resulted in learning and ideas that you used to empower yourself and build for yourself, which I think is beautiful on its own. I also heard the word no coder for the first time from you, so I'm going to try to remember that. So kind of matches with the idea of a coder or developer and no coder. That's interesting. All right, let's go to bold prediction, focusing on this space, but maybe a bit broader. Because you're a design being and you also use no code tools, and you were a developer, I've at least focused on front end for some time. Everything that's going on in those spaces, what would be a bold prediction if you were to make one within the next 5 years? Where do you see things going?
So I am a firm believer, really firm believer, that design and no code you really start working together. I really believe this you be extra function to say of designers to be able to do the first prototype and also run the first MVP as a real product. I believe these no code tools are becoming mainstream across industries. Like this is really democratizing access to technology. It is really for organizations of all sizes. It is to accelerate innovation. It is to drive digital transformation. We need to really start using no code to break down barriers. And this in 5 years, it'll be possible and it'll be necessary even for you to enter in the tech industry. I do believe this will be a prerequisite that you start to integrate it with AI, create a lot of more automations, maybe converge like a part you be coded, part that you be no coded. You also have these ways to have these lines in between the traditional development. You blur, like you won't really know what's no code and what's code. This you be created to this you be to create a wide range of applications, right? Like now we see vision coming in very fast, like AI is growing so fast too. And for some reason, it felt in the last year that no code was stagnant because all these tools came so fast into the market. But I do believe that we will be building complex solutions like Internet of Things, devices, also machine learn models. Why not? And we will be setting the best practices. People that start today, you creating these standards for no code development, and it will be possible to manage these applications at scale.
Thank you for that. Where do I want to go next? I want to go touch on a cause, a personal cause that you have, a topic, something on your mind that you might be passionate about and that you would like to share with our listeners.
So I am a mentor. I mentor designers, and I am really deeply passionate about helping these aspired designers to thrive in their careers. Like a transitioning from a structural learning environment, right? Like a boot camp, or maybe you are learning by yourself, to the professional world today. It's really challenging, and there are steps that you can take to navigate this transition between learning and being on an employee from someone. But thinking of that and seeing so many of my mentees struggling, I used no code tools to create a product. This product is called UX UI Hub.
Mhm.
And I created this. These apps just exist to help those junior designers to skill up, for them to network with other designers, to learn about industry events, to learn about experts like yourself. So I spent a lot of time keeping this project updated with a lot of resources for junior designers to keep their learning, to keep their improving their skills. Because let's be fair, once you finish your boot camp, you are still not there in UI design. You may be very good or on the right direction in UX design, but you still lack a lot of skills, and repetition it is still what makes you a better designer every day. And I see a lot of junior designers just getting out of a boot camp and going straight forward to a job search and having 6, 12 months in between and forgetting everything they have learned. You have to
Mm.
keep it going and until you find the right role. And I created this project and I invested a lot of my time exactly because I believe it can help. And with that, I want to say it's not just about me being passionate about it, but it is so nice when you are able to create a product that others use and you are the one receiving feedback for it to improve. Like not a development team, not your sales team. You are the one to see what is the next tool that you should or feature that you should include. So being a product owner or a product designer that owns the product and created it from scratch, it's kind of very unique. And I do believe that more people should be interested in creating their own products because of it too.
Definitely. I think there's a big element of empowerment there where you don't have to be at the mercy of the internal politics, the bureaucracy, the red tape that comes with certain organizations in the corporate world, and being able to truly help people in an area that you're passionate about. I think that that's very empowering. So thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to ask you, for those people that are interested in learning more about your work and connecting with you, how can they do that?
They can check my website. It's vitaminak.design. They can feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. Reach out to me if they have any questions or just want to say hello. I'm always open to connect with other professionals interested in the field. So I really welcome everyone.
Awesome. Karla, this conversation was thoughtful, valuable, and inspiring. And I want to say thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on the Product People podcast.
Thank you again for having me, Sabi.
I'm grateful to Karla Fernandes for sharing her insights on no-code tools. During our discussion, we spoke about the benefits and trade-offs of using no-code tools, how to best get started, and some of the common misconceptions about using them. I found Karla's insights to be practical, valuable, and empowering, and I hope you did too. I want to express my gratitude to all our listeners. Your support means the world to me. If you found today's episode valuable, please hit subscribe, leave a review, or share this podcast with your friends. I also encourage you to share your feedback and your ideas on what topics you'd like to hear about next on this podcast. Your input is very important as it helps me learn and improve. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes, and until next time, stay courageous, creative, and compassionate. Take care.